All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Bill Rawlings, the chair of the California Workforce Pathways Joint Advisory Committee. I want to thank you for joining us today. We do have some technical issues going on in the background with some members, and so we will have at least one member voting via chat. Due to the pandemic, today's meeting is being conducted virtually. I'll ask for everyone's patience as we navigate today's meeting. Today's meeting is being broadcast through a live webcast. Interested parties can view the broadcast by visiting the California Workforce Pathways webpage and clicking on the live webcast link located under the 2022 public meeting notices, agendas, and minutes. A recording of the webcast will be archived at the California Workforce Pathways webpage in about a week. So I have the following announcements to ensure a smooth meeting. Please keep all microphones on mute. All attendance and motions will be taken by roll call. Committee members will use the raise hand feature in the live webcast to be recognized for providing a comment or a question. And I will ask for public comment for each agenda item and again at the end of the meeting. And public comments can be made via live webcast, email, or by phone. And all options are explained on the posted agenda. Today, we have a number of items to cover. First, we will have an update on the development of the California State Career Technical Education Plan, which will be followed by a panel discussion on regional career technical education in California, led by Jobs for the Future staff. And I believe in that item, we're going to take things out of order. We're going to take item 3 and then item 2. We will conclude today's meeting with an update on the CTE state initiatives, the CTE incentive grant, and the K-12 Strong Workforce Program. But first, I'd like to welcome our 2 new members to the California Workforce Pathways Joint Advisory Committee. Representing the State Board of Education are Dr. Francisco Escobedo and Aide Rodriguez. Member Escobedo was not available for today's meeting, so I would welcome Member Rodriguez to make some introductory remarks. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. My name is Aide Rodriguez. I am a high school teacher in El Centro, California, and I was once a coordinator for the California academies, the partnership academies, and very familiar with the effect, the transformative effect, if you will, that the pathways and CTE have on our community and our students, not to mention the extension into the community colleges. Our area has a high unemployment rate, and we have a lot of other outlying issues. And so I thank all of you for all of the work that you have done to bring these programs into my community, because I've seen the positive impacts. And I also want to thank Member Rucker, who was on this advisory committee, who has now left the board, and I know that her work was very strong and powerful. So thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you, Member Rodriguez. I think it's going to be a good fit. We've got big shoes to fill, all of us, but it sounds like your experience is going to really bring some insights for us. It's great. So we must have a quorum to continue. And since this is a virtual meeting, staff will take attendance by roll call. So Rachel, would you please call the roll?
Chair Rawlings.
Present.
Member Escobedo. Member Grande. Member Rodriguez.
Present.
Member McQuillan.
Here.
Member Williams.
Here.
Ex officio Member McGuire. Ex officio Member Rattray.
All right. It looks like we have a quorum, and it is now 9:18, and I will call the meeting to order. Before moving to the first agenda item, I'll ask Rachel Moran to announce the staff members who are supporting us virtually.
Good morning again. Participating on behalf of the California Community Chancellor's Office, we have Sandra Sanchez, the Interim Vice Chancellor for the Workforce and Economic Development Division. She is virtual today. We have Yana Yatrides, the Dean for the Workforce and Economic Development Division. She is on site with us here at CDE. Participating on behalf of the California Department of Education, we have Pete Callis, Division Director of the Career and College Transition Division, on site. We have Colby Franklin, Education Administrator for the Career and Technical Education Leadership Office, also on site. And then we have Patricia DeCoste, Deputy Executive Director for the State Board of Education, who is virtual.
All right, thank you for that. So that brings us to item number 1, approval of the California Workforce Pathways Joint Advisory Committee, November 19th, 2021, preliminary report of action and draft minutes. So I'd like to seek the approval of the preliminary report of action. Is there a motion?
So
I make
moved,
that motion.
or
All
I'll
right.
second.
So that was Member Grande, and who was the second?
Jim McQuillan made the motion.
Jim McQuillan. Oh, Jim McQuillan made the motion. Okay. And so there's a motion and a second. Are there any comments from committee members? And hearing none, are there any comments from the public? All right. Then would we, if there are no comments from the public, I just want to double check with staff.
There are no public comments on this item.
All right. Then would you please call the roll?
Chair Rawlings,
Yes.
Member Escobedo, Member Grande,
Aye.
Member McQuillan,
Yes.
Member Rodriguez,
I'll abstain.
Member Williams,
Yes.
ex officio
All
Member
right.
McGuire, ex officio Member Rattray.
All right. Sounds like the report of action and the minutes for November 19th, 2021 are approved, and the recording of the meeting will be available on the California Workforce Pathways webpage. So we're going to now move on to the next 2 items. As I mentioned, we're going to take these out of order, starting with item number 3 and then on to item number 2. And item number 3 is the update on the California State Plan for Career Technical Education, focus group sessions, and the outline of the California State Plan for CTE, led by Jobs for the Future. So I would like to welcome Charlotte Cahill, the Senior Director of Jobs for the Future, and Daniel Trujillo, the Assistant Director of Jobs for the Future, to guide the committee through the update. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Rawlings, and thank you to the committee for having us here today. We're very much looking forward to providing an update on the development of the California State Plan and gathering your feedback and guidance. On our agenda for today, I think it's loading, is to provide a high-level overview of the project, as well as an update on the timeline. We will discuss some of the inputs that are informing the development of the state plan, including what we've heard during study sessions at the last 2 meetings of this committee, and what we've heard through a series of focus groups we conducted to inform this plan. Today, we will also have a panel from 2 regions in California. They will discuss how they're collaborating and building partnerships across their regions, and they will share insights and examples to inform the development of the state plan for CTE. Finally, we're excited to share a high-level outline of the California State Plan for CTE and engage this committee in a discussion around the structure of the plan. So I know the PowerPoint is still loading. There we go. Next slide, please. JFF has been working with the California State team since last summer in the development of the California State Plan for CTE. The goal of the state plan is to lay out a vision for the future of CTE in California and strategies for how to get there. The plan takes a strategic and call to action approach. It preserves the intentionality of the California way and California's student-centered approach. The guiding the development of the state plan is the state plan framework, which you see here. It includes 4 priorities: supply that meets demand, effective delivery and support, data that informs the investments, systems alignment, and it includes 5 cross-cutting themes: career pathways, CTE teacher and faculty prep and pipeline, dual enrollment, regional partnership development, and work-based learning. The framework is what has been guiding study sessions, focus groups, today's regional panel, and ultimately the state plan itself. Next slide, please. To develop and support the implementation of the state plan, we are undertaking 4 phases of this work. The first phase included background research, reviewing key plans and reports, such as Perkins, and other key documents foundational to this work, including documents through the work of this committee, the guiding policy principles and 12 essential elements of a high-quality college and career pathway. We also provided 2 study sessions to this committee. We're looking forward to providing a recap of that today. And we've been conducting virtual focus groups with a wide range of regional stakeholders. We're now in the second phase of this work. We are synthesizing the input we collected during this first phase, including input from this committee, and we are in the process of drafting and iterating on the plan. Our aim is to deliver a first draft of this plan at the next meeting of this committee, and we also plan to run a public commenting process and finalize the plan this fall. During phase 3, the plan is to conduct town halls in regions across the state and to support the development of state and regional implementation plans. This process will culminate with a statewide virtual implementation meeting. In the final phase, we will be supporting the California State team in developing a set of outcomes that might be measured, as well as key metrics and benchmarks aligned to the priorities in the state plan for CTE. You'll see in red, we've noted a few updates to the timeline. We've expanded the timeline a little bit to be able to collect feedback from key stakeholders, as well as this committee, and to allow for more time to draft the state plan based on that input. Next slide, please. So last year, to help inform this committee's thinking and the development of the state plan for CTE, JFF delivered 2 study sessions. They featured national leaders and leaders from other states to share lessons learned, insights, and ideas for consideration. Presenters also shared research and forward-looking innovations to potentially adapt to the California context. Today, we wanted to provide a recap of these sessions as we drive toward a discussion of the outline of the state plan later in today's session. So this first study session featured Kimberly Green from Advanced CTE, and she provided a national perspective on issues and trends affecting the future of CTE. These included the need to create more equitable CTE programs and systems that are responsive to the future of work. She shared that new ways of working have been brought about by the pandemic, and that the skills and competencies needed to succeed in the world of work are changing. At the state and regional levels, we were joined by Jonathan Furr, Executive Director at Education Systems Center at the Northern Illinois University, as well as Luke Ryan, Director of CTE and STEM Initiatives at the Delaware Department of Education, and Jared Toussaint, Senior Vice President for Education and Workforce at the Dallas Regional Chamber of Commerce. These presenters provided insights on the role of state systems and leaders in driving innovation in high-quality CTE. They share their experience and lessons learned in developing plans similar to the California State Plan for CTE. And they shared their experience and expertise in other areas relevant to the state plan. These included aligning systems, in particular data and accountability systems, building infrastructure, and deploying braided funding strategies. They also shared how important regional partnerships have been in their context for supporting the design and implementation of high-quality CTE. They shared what structures, governance models, and state supports have helped them build those partnerships in those regions. Finally, they discussed their insights on developing sustainable intermediaries and strategies for leveraging TA providers. The last component of this session featured Charlotte Cahill, who is on our call today, Senior Director at JFF, who provided an overview of what works in work-based learning and what JFF has learned about virtual work-based learning specifically. She shared JFF's framework for work-based learning and discussed the central role that high-quality work-based learning plays in equitable CTE programs and systems. Next slide, please. The second study session featured Joel Simon from MZ Burning Glass, Vice President of Workforce Strategies. He provided some of the latest labor market research and insights, including what jobs and skills will potentially drive the post-pandemic recovery. He also discussed some of the implications for the future of work, the future of credentials, CTE development, and also equity. Joel Vargas, Vice President at JFF, provided an argument, the big blur, for erasing the boundaries between high school, college, and careers, and proposed creating one new system that works for everyone. He also discussed the equity imperative behind this work, that blurring the lines between high school, post-secondary education, and the labor market is necessary to help students move seamlessly from education to the world of work and to support them in attaining credentials that have value in the labor market. Next slide, please. So while the study sessions provided an opportunity to hear about bold ideas, innovations, and promising policies and practices from across the country, we also engaged a wide range of stakeholders in California to inform the development of the state plan for CTE. With the support of the CAST, we were able to invite over 240 people to participate in focus groups, and we engaged a wide variety of groups. These included K-12 leaders, counselors and teachers, college leadership, faculty, staff, and students, adult education consortia, county offices of ed, regional occupation centers, workforce boards, economic development agencies, chambers of commerce, community-based organizations, including social enterprises, philanthropy, and technical assistance providers, K-12 pathways coordinators, and regional consortium chairs. We used a structured protocol with areas of focus that were derived from the state plan framework you saw earlier, and we used this committee's guiding policy principles as a foundation for those discussions. We have two groups we have not yet engaged. Those are the high school students and parents. After consultation with the CAST, we're working with CDE to send out a survey to representatives from each of these groups in lieu of running focus groups. Next slide, please. So we wanted to share with you today the main themes that emerged from our analysis of what we heard during these focus groups. These are the themes that came up most often and that cut across focus groups and participant types. The first theme was around mainstreaming career education. Many in the field perceive a bifurcation between college and career. At the high school level, CTE is sometimes perceived as an alternative to preparing for college. And at the community college level, we heard participants similarly felt that career education programs are often perceived as less favorable than liberal arts or transfer programs. Participants broadly felt that all students stand to benefit from elements of high quality college and career pathways, and they named specifically career exploration and navigation and opportunities for work-based learning. Participants felt that elevating career education and CTE, making it more mainstream, would help address some of these perceptions and concerns. The second theme we heard was around aligning to employer needs. There was some concern from participants that credentials awarded through CTE programs are not always meeting employer needs or are not always recognized by employers. They also expressed concerns that the length of time needed to create a new program or course can sometimes be a barrier to meeting employer needs in the short term. Participants broadly saw a need for more collaboration between industry and education. They saw a need to use both labor market information and local industry input to ensure programs and credentials are meeting labor market demand. They saw opportunities to collaborate across education systems within regions and to work more strategically with with employers. And there was a broad desire to strengthen collaboration and alignment with employers, especially around securing additional work-based learning opportunities for students. The final point around aligning to employer needs is participants mentioned intermediaries as playing an important role in this collaboration and alignment to employer needs. The third theme was around using data for continuous improvement. To better use data, participants raised the need to have common definitions of some key terms such as work-based learning and equity. They raised the need to have more streamlined reporting requirements across funding streams and programs that support CTE. Many participants saw a need to further integrate data systems and provide access to data on student performance, long-term outcomes, and other measures of success. There also emerged a need for additional supports for leaders and practitioners for data analysis and for using that analysis to inform decision-making and continuous improvement. The fourth theme was around expanding the CTE teacher and faculty pipeline. Participants broadly expressed concern about the education sector's ability to attract and retain qualified CTE teachers and faculty with both the industry experience and pedagogical skill sets needed for those roles. They suggested greater support for existing teachers and faculty members to become CTE teachers and faculty members, and they felt pathways for existing teachers and faculty could be strengthened and clarified. The last theme was around creating a common definition and understanding of equity. We noticed that participants did not all hold the same definition or understanding of equity and how equity issues manifest themselves across institutions, programs, and systems. Participants primarily spoke in terms of equitable access, and few spoke in terms of equitable outcomes. Many participants named student needs like childcare and transportation and other barriers to access. And many also mentioned the role that data plays in helping to illuminate and act on equity gaps. However, they share that this is an area for growth in terms of using data to identify and act on gaps. Next slide, please. So at this time, Chair Rollins, if it's okay, we'd love to switch over to the regional panel and then come back to a discussion of the state plan outline, if that's okay.
That is okay.
Thank you. So as we think about incorporating what we learned from focus groups and what we heard during study sessions into the state plan, we also wanted to inform this committee's thinking by elevating examples of work going on now in California's regions. So today we have panelists from two regions. From the Inland Empire Desert Region, we have Stephanie Houston, Assistant Superintendent with the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, and Julie Pekkanen, Chair of the Inland Empire Desert Regional Consortium. From San Diego, we have Leslie Wisdom, K-14 Technical Assistance Provider, and Jewel Alderson-Clark, Integrated Curriculum Coordinator at the San Diego County Office of Education. They will be sharing with us how they're working and aligning as a region on the development of pathways, as well as on the development of specific elements of pathways, such as work-based learning. They will also share with us how they are building partnerships to support this work. And we'll need the presenter decks. And I turn it over to Jewel and Leslie.
Thank you so much, Daniel. We are very excited to be here. I'm Jewel Alderson-Clark with the San Diego County Office of Education.
Morning, members of the committee. My name is Leslie Wisdom. I'm the K-14 Technical Assistance Provider, and I work with the San Diego and Imperial Counties Community Colleges Regional Consortium.
And we're excited to be here today to share a little bit about how we collaborate for regional support for San Diego County College and Career Readiness. Next slide. We thought it would be helpful to start out with a little overview of our region. We have over 500,000 students in our K-12 system across very rural, urban, mountain, desert, and coastal communities. In our community college district, we have our multiple districts, we have over 200,000 students. This means that we are looking at a variety of different stakeholders that we're looking to support with a number of different challenges. Additionally, I will, since Ms. Rodriguez is from Imperial County, that is part of the regional consortium of our community colleges. And so many times these opportunities, even if we're running them at the county office, are open for those of you out at the desert. So we're happy to have you on the committee today. Next slide.
So we're leveraging structures to support K-14 students, teachers, staff, and administrators. We have monthly San Diego County Office of Education and San Diego Imperial Regional Consortium meetings where we can collaborate and coordinate efforts. Our Regional Consortium Strong Workforce Program has work groups, committees, and communities of practice that collaborate to systematically and holistically improve a student's path to success. And that includes everything from pre-college enrollment to onboarding to student retention and success, and then on to transition, whatever that may be. Many of these groups include K-14 practitioner participation. And as Jewel mentioned, everything that the Regional Consortium does includes practitioners in San Diego as well as in Imperial County. We have monthly K-12 CTE Leaders Networks meetings within San Diego to share information and promising practices. Our K-12 pathway coordinators work one-on-one with their K-12 LEAs, as well as with their assigned community college districts to support and foster partnerships. They also meet as a community of practice to collaborate regionally. Areas of focus for each of these groups, as well as the focus of our presentation today, will be on career pathways, early college credit, and work-based learning. Next slide, please.
Now, career pathways is a huge topic, so we've kind of divided it into a few smaller pieces. Most of today's presentation is aligned to many of the outcomes that JFF is seeing in the different themes that came up. So when it comes to grant supports, what we identify as some challenges is actually a bit of fatigue. There are a lot of grants as part of our CTE system. And so whether it's grant management or writing, fatigue, and then also initiative-itis, we have a lot of districts trying to come up with new plans consistently to meet the requirements of grants. When it comes to this, we also sometimes get confusion with reporting. Which grant are we reporting on today versus tomorrow? And so some of the things that we put in place as a region to address these are around professional learning. We often run grant workshops, which may come out of our county office or our regional consortium. We kind of work together to divide and conquer different topics that our LEAs need the most. The county office runs our CTE Leaders Network, but Leslie and the regional consortium always has time on our agenda to share updates. And so what we really want is a one-stop shop for leaders in our region to come monthly and get all the information they need, whether it's about grants or something else, because many of our CTE leaders wear a lot of hats in their district. And so it's important for us to be really clear, to set out the expectations, and to communicate things that are coming from the state and best practices around the region. We also provide direct district supports for writing, implementation, and reporting. Our regional consortium has an amazing website that covers everything, including the CTE incentive grant. Our pathway coordinators bridge the gap as they're hosted in our K-12 LEAs, but Leslie, as the K-14 TAP, works strongly with them. In all of us, when a district needs help, there are a lot of people who they can tap to get that support. As we continue through, professional learning is another challenge that we see. And first of all, we know that right now, everywhere in education, there's a lot of fatigue when it comes to professional learning. So our teachers are less likely to show up than they've ever been. But we've found this as a time to leverage an opportunity to support our leaders. And so data is one of the struggles that our leaders have. And so making sure that they understand how to access and use data as the CCI metrics are changing, we try to help with data management and things like that so that they can come to us. I did a big webinar on using the CCI equity data in order to write grants. And so, using the data is really important. And so that's where our professional learning has lived. We also run conferences around career pathways, middle school, and counselors. And our regional Consortium has run that counselor conference for many years, even before COVID, in support of kind of bridging that gap and that alignment, which is a nice move into alignment because this is where we see a really strong portion of our work together is aligning the work from K-12 to community college and on to career. And so here what we have is the program finder, which is a digital tool that anyone can use on the web to identify the programs that are in their region, whether it's at the K-12 or the community college level in CTE. And so this was out of a community college working group that has K-12 stakeholders, and it's a really important part of how we identify needs in our community and then work together to meet those needs. We also see, I think, when it was kind of mentioned that we really need to have that alignment from high school to community college, and we don't want that to be the secondary chance. And as Daniel said a moment ago, we really see all students are career bound. And so we want all of our students to say, whether they go to career from high school, 2-year, 4-year apprenticeship, non-credit, whatever it is, we want to make sure there's alignment so students have that seamless transition and can make informed decisions going forward. And so as we work on this, we want to have those Center of Excellence briefs and reports inform both the K-12 and community college. And those are our labor market reports that are done up by our community college Center of Excellence. Our region has then taken a lot of that data and put it into a career education guide that counselors can sit right on their desk that connects our community college programs and our labor market information in a very accessible way, because we really want to make sure there's access and understanding by all of the stakeholders, particularly counselors and staff, so that they can communicate that with our students and increase alignment. And the priority sector handouts that are mentioned there are our labor market information created in a way that's a little bit more user-friendly. If you've ever seen labor market reports, they can be overwhelming. So we want those to be something that students can access. As we look forward with pathways, we have additional challenges around that awareness and perception of CTE, that access to credentialed teachers that was mentioned earlier, particularly in a very high wage region. It's hard to lure an engineer out of industry to teach in our K-12 systems. We are also concerned about alternative school programs, as the 300 hours metric is really limiting in their ability to access funds and provide services when they don't have students for that long. And then again, equity and access to programs at the middle school level are all areas that we're continuing to address and are hopeful to see supports both in our region and at the state level going forward. Next slide.
So regarding early college credit, some of our overarching work includes the adoption of regionally endorsed definitions, flyers that have been translated into English, Spanish, and Arabic, as well as accessible resources compiled on a regional website. For articulation, our regional consortium facilitates an articulation credit by exam community of practice to share promising practices, examine processes, and begin regional data collection. Some of the common challenges this group is addressing include having dedicated funding to staff the management of the program, getting high school students through the multi-step community college application process in order to transcript those articulated credits, and identifying common methods for tracking data. For dual enrollment, our regional consortium has recently hired an early college credit and transitions consultant to support the work. So she'll be doing a regional needs assessment, facilitating a community of practice, as well as office hours for dual enrollment practitioners across the region, and also compiling relevant resources, again, on a regional website that'll be accessible to all. Some common challenges around dual enrollment. Well, there are many. Here's just a few. Again, having dedicated funding to staff program management. And of course, this one's at both the K-12 level and the community college level. And then we're also facing union agreement issues and reciprocal credentialing for faculty. Next slide, please.
When it comes to work-based learning, this is one of the hardest hit areas of CTE by COVID-19. The lack of in-person access to industry has meant that the last few years we focus on a lot of virtual opportunities. But as we look forward to the future, we're hopeful that we'll continue to grow this as part of our region. What we did as a region, though, is we did a regional needs assessment because we like to work together in figuring out what we need to do. And here we found that the main barriers to work-based learning are availability of opportunities, student time and interest, and teacher and staff time to broker and coordinate these. And so a lot of this comes from the fact that we do have a lot of students in rural areas, and also 500,000 K-12 students. It's really hard to place so many of them in industry. Luckily, our Board of Education at the county office has the #1 board goal of connecting all students to the world of work. So we're lucky that we've invested strongly in a work-based learning team, and they've been able to put on a number of student events that are not only part of SDCOE, but we also in the pre-COVID times host them at our community college partner sites so that when we bring industry in to talk to students, students also have opportunities to take tours of our community colleges and interact with the faculty at the college level. We definitely share those opportunities, and those are usually open to Imperial, San Diego County, and at the community college students to attend as well, or they'll sometimes volunteer and be part of that so they can speak to the programs. So those shared opportunities are a very important part of the work that we do. We've gone virtual with many of these, but we are back in person, having a few smaller events in person or blended where we'll only have juniors and seniors in person and other students can access these events on their own. When it comes to communication and resources, we love to share promising practices from district to district. One of the struggles that everyone's having is with the new work-based learning indicator on the college and career indicator. So this metric, we're still getting clarification on some things from the state. I have been lucky to participate at the state level in some of that. And so I'm looking forward to some frequently asked questions coming out. But we do continue to ask for clarification. This is a metric that hasn't been gathered much in the past. And so the development of ways to capture these metrics in a meaningful way, not just in CTE, but across all of education, is one of the things that districts are looking for, as this is not only a CTE metric, but a metric that any student who is at a school may be able to meet as part of the dashboard. We also, as I mentioned, have invested heavily in virtual work-based learning. And so while our community colleges, they'll also record those and contribute them to our program. Next slide.
At this point, we just want to thank you all for allowing us this time to share a bit about how we're working collaboratively across the region to support CTE. We welcome any opportunity to work with this group and others to strengthen CTE in our state so that students have access to programs that lead to high wage, high demand careers and support a thriving economy. Thank you. And we'll also take any questions.
All right. Daniel, does that conclude the item for you?
There's another region to present. So
Okay.
up to you. Yeah.
Let's hold the, well, actually, let's do some questions now from committee members. And then at the end of the presentation, we'll do the public comment period for members of the public to ask on items 3 and 2. So I see Joseph Williams.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. When you were talking about the work-based learning component, I just wondered if you had any thoughts on, would there be any value, or do we even know if there, and what I'm trying to think about is collecting wage information. Like, are there paid work experience opportunities happening across the state, and would there be any value in capturing that and just understanding if students are doing paid or unpaid work-based learning or internships? And just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I think that's a really important question, because that comes down to the equity issue we see in CTE and work-based learning. There are a lot of students who just honestly cannot afford to take an unpaid internship. And so we do work when we can with our WIOA partners to provide paid internships, but it is with the scale that we would need in San Diego, it's not something that meets our needs at this point. I think that data would be great because it could unveil where best practices are happening. And so if you were able to find regions that were really utilizing, whether it's industry partnerships that are willing to pay those funds, or braiding together WIOA funds or other intentional funds towards internships, I think that would be great. I know, I believe Pete Callis mentioned at Educating for Careers that this is something that he's working towards, is some funding towards paid internships. And we would definitely welcome any support in that space, as we do believe that is a foundational miss as far as equity when it comes to internships and access to those. Mm-hmm.
And Member Williams, I'll discuss it during item 4. I've got a brief piece on item 4 on paid internships that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, we didn't lose your thoughts on that, Member Williams. So we're going to be diving into that a little bit more over the next meeting or two. So I've got 2 questions. The thing that strikes me is the intentionality between building alignment, right? And really being able to build that alignment and then get it into the hands of the practitioners right at the front line. And I think that's really significant because as I've been hearing from other people in different consortiums, particularly in community colleges, it seems like they've had trouble building that out. And so I was wondering if you had any indication, any inkling as to how many of the consortia are following the type of model and practices that you are, and if not, what does it take to do it? It seems like it was probably quite a bit of work to get that done. But I know San Diego has had longstanding relationships and strong bonds between the educational institutions down there. And there's a variety of different groups that have already been working in this space. So I wanted to just get your thoughts on that. And then the second question I had was, I've heard over time and from different sources, different issues and challenges with dual enrollment and really implementing it well. And any thoughts you might have on what those challenges are and how we might address some of those.
I'll go ahead and start. We have been working with our K-12 partners since before K-12 Strong Workforce as a regional consortium. And as you talked about alignment, it's very complicated and the work is definitely nowhere near complete. It's ongoing, of course, and we are extending, of course, that alignment work with our adult education and non-credit partners because we know that students come into the community college space from a variety of different other areas. So they might be coming straight from K-12, they might be coming from the workplace, they might be coming from adult education non-credit. So one of the things that we're working towards is trying to create career pathway like mapping or lattices that have multiple entry and exit points so that students can see how they fit into that career pathway towards that job or career at the end. So it's definitely complicated work. It requires a lot of meetings, a lot of collaboration, a lot of communication. We're thrilled to do it. And we're thrilled that, our regional consortium has been willing and able to commit staffing and time for this effort, because like I said, it is ongoing. And I think another issue is having a tool that's accessible to students, parents, and practitioners so they too can see those pathways where they begin, where they can lead to all the different entry and exit points. That's something we're still working towards, but we have taken steps to get there.
I'll add that it's also about relationship building. As Leslie mentioned, we have a regional meeting of just kind of our regional consortium team and our career COE team so that we can be on the same page, fill each other in, talk about, okay, what are the upcoming needs and who's going to fill those? So I think it's also about collaboration and not competition when it comes to the supports we provide. And we've all been in the space together for a long time. I think that helps. Back with SB 1070, I was on loan to the community colleges, right, when I came out of the classroom, where they were providing, I was building curriculum for our K-12 partners to engage with priority sectors and what used to be the deputy sector navigators. And so luckily, even though funds have shifted, we've lost the deputy sector navigators and now we've lost the regional directors, but we're able to pick up some of that work because so many of us have stayed in the space and stayed connected. And so it is also about building that ecosystem and a strong belief across our programs in the work that we're doing so that we continue to be funded for these positions and that we have staffing who can support the work across the region.
And then just to address your question about dual enrollment, we have just begun to scratch the surface on some of the complicating factors around implementing promising dual enrollment practices. We know there's pockets of great work happening across our region, and we have just begun to elevate those promising practices to all practitioners. Again, I think one of the bigger complicating factors is having dedicated staff at the K-12 sites and the community college sites that are dedicated to doing the dual enrollment programming. We've got, what we see is a variety of different practitioners who have dual enrollment kind of under their umbrella, where they're doing a multitude of other things as well. So it's hard for them to really concentrate on it. So you've got everything from a dean overseeing it at the community college to maybe like a hourly staff member. So there's not like a dedicated coordinator of sorts at the community college or the K-12 level. So it's kind of being worked on at various levels, but there's not necessarily dedicated funding for it.
That is very helpful. Building alignment between all of our systems is a priority of mine, and especially when it comes to data systems and how we can really make sure that we're properly integrated to create lifelong pathways for our students is one of my main things. So it's good to hear this kind of feedback, and hopefully, as you all have gotten this head start with the relationships that you have between your agencies down there, hopefully you'll be able to take some of those learnings and be able to share them with the other regions. It's very helpful.
I will just mention Leslie has had me come in to speak to the pathway coordinators across the state a few times. And Great. So we're definitely scaling as much as we can the work that we have to other regions and supporting the work anywhere we can.
That's wonderful. Ide, I see your hand.
Yes, I want to thank you so much for this presentation. It was very enlightening, and I would be excited to learn more. I mean, not right now, but later to look at the data, right? The data for equity outcomes and what that looks like. And I really appreciate the work that you're doing to help with that mind shift for parents to be able to see that articulation and the value. I have well, she was a student of mine a couple of years ago, but she'll be graduating this year. And she's taken 6 dual enrollment classes. And she was accepted at every university she applied to. So, this is very powerful work, and there are opportunities for our students that they wouldn't have otherwise. And I really liked hearing the collaboration, not competition, because I think that's like the competition is a residue that was left over from the NCLB days, right, where each school had to beat the other, or here sharing best practices is what, a lot of the industry does. And so this is, I'm really looking forward to seeing more of your work, and I appreciate everything. And the program finder was a highlight for me, so I'm going to look into that later today. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rodriguez. Any other questions from members of the committee? And seeing none, Daniel, we're ready for the next panel.
So thank you, Chair Rollins. I turn it over to Julie and Stephanie.
Great. Good morning. Julie, you start. You kick us off.
My name is Julie Pekkanen. I'm chair of the Inland Empire Desert Regional Consortia, which comprises all the community college and K-12 districts in Riverside and San Bernardino counties.
And I am Stephanie Houston. I am assistant superintendent at the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools office, the county office for San Bernardino County. You get a twofer with me. I'm also the vice chair of our San Bernardino Community College District. So we're excited to share the collaborative work that we've been engaged in. I think Julie and I have been partnering for well over 20 years in this work. And so, like was already presented, the relationships, the foundation that we've already built is something that is a strength within our region. And I think we'll be able to highlight some of those elements today. So I think we can go to the next slide. So this slide is just really a kind of a graphic of, the organizations that we're building the foundation on within the 2-county region. So you can see we've got our Inland Empire Desert Regional Consortium, which Julie leads that work and really leads that entire group that is the core foundation. Within that, we have our Launch Apprenticeship Network that serves both of our counties. And then the graphic with all the bubbles is our Alliance for Education that is here at the county office. And that's where we are connecting our districts to the world of work, and we're also educating our students for the world of work. And we do that through the structure, it's on the screen there, by connecting to our industry partners and then having the curriculum and the career pathway work. So I don't know, Julie, if you want to jump in.
Oh, no, we'll move on.
All right, with that, we will go to the next slide. So one of the things that we're working on right now is our pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship pipeline. So I heard lots of conversation about the interest in paid opportunities for students, and apprenticeships are paid opportunities for our students. And so what we're doing is we are working with our regional apprenticeship sponsors, our post-secondaries and the Department of Apprenticeship Standards to build a regional pre-apprenticeship pipeline that really leverages the existing apprenticeship pipeline. We believe that that's going to elevate our existing career pathways, the ones that can be pre-apprenticeship programs, and it will really help us be more effective in our use of resources, and it will bridge our career pathways then to those apprenticeship programs through this system. And with that, we know that's going to help our workforce and economic development priorities. Within San Bernardino County, we have a specific charge to transform our county into a place that people want to work, play, and live. And within that charge, this idea of what are the elements that make any area a place that people want to work, play, and live? And we've identified over the last about 15 years collectively across the county, across all of the large government agencies, public agencies, private agencies, community partnership agencies, we've identified 10 elements. And within those elements, we've kind of focused on 4. And the 4 are health, education, safety, and economic development. And so with that, you can see that this work around apprenticeship programs aligns with those larger countywide visions, and we're then able to bring in our other organizations to help support that. So you want to jump in here, Julie?
I'm going to speak about the Launch Apprenticeship Network when we go to the next slide, and as a model program that can be replicated in other regions. It includes all of the community college partners. Many of our K-12 agencies, our 2 county offices of education, our workforce development departments, and over 80 employers. So I'll talk a little bit about that later, but it is a model program, and apprenticeship is that a true apprenticeship is a paid apprenticeship. And so it does provide opportunities for students to learn and earn.
And on this slide, there's a hot link, and I don't know if you want me to put anything in the chat to link straight to it, but what we've also done as a collaborative is we have mapped out all of our career education programs from the secondary to the post-secondary. So it includes our high school programs and our community college programs. And then working with centers of excellence, we've layered onto this map all of our industry partners that have employees that are connected to these pathways. So we can use that data to identify, are we saturating? Do we have gaps? Excuse me, what's going on? What's the picture look like? And it's live, it's dynamic. So I think that on a few slides later down, we'll have just some graphics of it. But that hot link there is also a result of this collaboration between Riverside and San Bernardino County and our works. That includes all of the pathways that exist, again, including the community colleges and the secondary. I think we can go to the next slide.
So I wanted to introduce you to the Regional Launch Apprenticeship Network. Launch was formed in 2018. It was initially started with strong workforce funds. It continues to today, has grown quite a bit since 2018, and it receives funding from the organizations and grant initiatives I've shown there. Irvine Foundation has contributed a lot of resources. We have the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors, and our New America Foundation is funding a new pre-apprenticeship, youth apprenticeship program in the region. So I mentioned earlier just the breadth of partners that we have, and this number is growing all the time. Launch, what we do in Launch is we leverage all of these partners in the systems, and we support Launch system supports partners to integrate apprenticeship into their organizations, whether it's an educational institution or a business. We serve as Launch serves as an intermediary. Apprenticeship is complicated, and so we bring expertise to the table. We help new education institutions get started in apprenticeship, and we work very collaboratively. The Launch Network is very flexible. Not all partners do all the same programs in all the same ways, and so the Launch Network allows for that flexibility. For example, in the PIA, which is the Partnership to Advance Youth Apprenticeship, the program is sponsored by New America. All of the grant partners have agreed to work on similar programs, but they're not all doing it in the same way. So the Alliance for Education is working on a partner pre-apprenticeship network called IE Connect. Chaffey College uses the Launch brand for its newer programs, but it still uses it's a former brand, IDEA, for its industrial mechanic program. So all of these partners are participating in regional meetings. They're sharing promising practices. They're sharing employers and work sites, but they're vested in keeping their unique brands and doing things the way that works best for them. So when I said apprenticeship is complicated, it is complicated for employers to work with all of these organizations. And so Launch as an intermediary is one place to go for employers, so they don't have to navigate all the various systems within the region. It's really about specific programs and activities within the network. But in order to sustain the network, intermediaries like Launch need some level of state support because we operate on grant funds. And so when that's the case, oftentimes you can grow, you can be unique, it's flexible, you can start up new things, but it's hard to sustain them in the long term. And apprenticeship is, because you have so many different people at the table, employers, county workforce, education agencies, both K-12, community college, and our universities, students, all of that makes the work very complicated, and it needs sustained funding. And that, if we go to the next slide.
I think we'll go to the next slide. So I already talked a little bit about the pre-apprenticeship work that we're doing, and this really just highlights, I think, what I already spoke to. And, the connection there is really to elevate what we're doing in our existing pathways. And, I've heard in the conversation, whether it was, through looking at the priorities that Daniel was identifying, but this idea of leveling the playing field, of, raising the status of our career education programs so that they are viewed as for all students. And the idea of all students are going to go into a career. that concept really being something that takes root. And with that career education, it doesn't matter how you get to your career. You're going to need to be a lifelong learner, and you're going to need to continue your education. And we know that. So this is hopefully going to be building that status. So we can go on to the next slide, where this is a graphic of the map. So I did put a link in the chat. You could go directly to the map. It is by industry sector, and you can see the purple little mortarboards are secondary programs, and the blue are our college programs across the two counties. But you can drill down by sector. You can then, if you go to the next slide, it kind of just has a picture of how you then from there can drill down into the actual industry partner and the number of employees that they have. One of the things I always fight for, well, I don't know if fight's the right word, but I always talk about in education is that we talk about our industry partners as employers. We call them employers. They are businesses that need employees to run their business, but their businesses first, their industry partners first. And I think focusing on that kind of changes the mindset just a little bit. And two, when we talk about employers in the education space, our education sector, we are quite often the largest employer within our regions. And so considering that in our narrative, in our mindset, in what we're talking about, I think is so important, because if we realize that we in the education space are also an industry, we are also a sector, that helps the conversation around what I've seen about we need to build the pipeline. We know that we need to elevate the recruitment efforts so that we have enough folks in our sector to meet the needs. So some of the terminology I get kind of excited about, but we are also an industry sector, and we are an industry sector reflected on this map. So I think with that, you can go on to the next slide.
I would just like to add to regarding the map. Right now, the focus for the map are primarily educators. So we're showing educators how they can connect to their pathways with community college pathways. But we are growing this tool, and we want to have a different face for students to come into we're developing a data hub so they can come in and they can look at the data in a way that makes more sense to them. And it speaks more to where they are. One of our regional partners, the Inland Empire Economic Partnership, has received money from JP Morgan Chase to build out some type of regional data tool, and they're going to use this tool. My understanding is a foundation for building it out even further, and eventually we'd like to have it to connect to jobs. This connects to employers and shows educators where the concentration of industries and businesses in their particular geographic region are. But we hope to eventually link this to jobs, the availability of jobs, employers that are currently hiring in a particular, for students coming from a particular pathway with a particular set of training. Next slide. So the IE Mayor's Cup, Dr. Houston and I also want to talk about kind of that pathway development in some different ways. It's not necessarily work-based learning, but it's a way to expose students to cyber careers through competitive challenge. We just had our last Mayor's Cup challenge 2 weekends ago, I believe it was, and we had 51 teams participate in the Mayor's Cup challenge. So we look at the Mayor's Cup challenge as a tool to get students interested in both high school and community college cyber career pathways. So we actually had 12 middle schools compete. We had 33 high schools and 6 community colleges compete in the Cyber Cup. Leading up to the Cyber Cup, well, let me back up. The Cyber Cup, students, similar to a hackathon. They are, they in teams work on hacking a system or protecting a system. So it's really very engaging. Leading up to the Cyber Cup, the week before, we have a Live at 5 event where we're bringing in employers who are speaking to students. We have over 100 students participate each night, so it's Monday through Friday. And it allows us to bring in employers that would not normally, that we would not normally get to attend, speak to a class of students. We had Robert Half, which is the largest, it's a global human resources consulting firm, and they focus heavily on IT careers. The NSA, the National Institute for Standards, from the U.S. Department of Commerce, CompTIA, which is a major organization, nonprofit organization that provides industry recognized certifications, and BlackBerry, which I was surprised by that. I thought BlackBerry was just that little device I had years ago that I loved because they had the little keyboard, but no, they're actually they're heavily involved in intelligence security software. So it exposes students in our region who would not normally have access to those types of employers to the world of cyber.
And it aligns with our larger, so we have through Cal State San Bernardino, our larger initiative around cybersecurity and what we're building around that. If we go to the next slide, I think that's the Live at 5, which Julie talked about. So we can click on to the next slide where I can show you. This is the next slide is going to be just a screenshot of our web page for the Alliance for Education. And this is where we will be, how you could go into the web page. If you can go to the next slide. And you can click on any of these links and they will take you to, I've put some into the chat as well. We've developed a micro internship toolkit specifically to, it was really during the pandemic, a way to connect industry partners to students in the classroom. And what we've discovered is that it is an amazing way and an amazing opportunity for us to scale up across both Riverside and San Bernardino County. We piloted before we launched the toolkit in both counties in a variety of districts and settings. And through that developed, the toolkit has everything any district would need to engage in that. And the idea is if an industry partner, if there was one skill that you needed any and all of your staff to have, what would that be? And if you had 90 minutes, that's what you've got. And so that's kind of what we built there. We've got the map, we've got curriculum library, we've developed in response to independent study. We've got a whole pathway built in Canvas so that our districts can access that to ensure that if a student is in an independent study situation, they can still access a high quality career tech ed program. If you go on to the next slide, that's just, again, more graphics. We've also developed at-home work-based learning lesson plans for elementary, middle, and high school. And those are posted on Pinterest because we know that's where teachers go to find resources. These we are also shared across the entire, well, we've got the entire country kind of looking at that one. Teachers are pulling these resources and utilizing them as well. I think if we go to the next slide after this, this is the independent study career pathway that we've built. So we've built a sports, entertainment, and marketing pathway. And again, that's built in Canvas, plug and play, can go for any district can utilize that. And I think the last slide really just kind of also highlights, if you go to our Alliance website, the things that we're working on that are these collaborative partnerships. So our SB Connect is a video conferencing platform where we can either synchronously or asynchronously, so they're all archived and recorded, have industry partners speaking with students in the classroom using the technology, using video conferencing. And so what it does from the equity point of view is it provides more opportunities for students to engage with industries that they might not otherwise have access to, because we're only limited by the technology. So we're able to ensure that diversity of experience is in front of our kids. The Jumpstart program are short-term trainings for students who have graduated high school out of a pathway. It's a bridge from that high school graduation over the summer into their post-secondary endeavors. So we have short-term training programs, so community healthcare worker programs, drone certifications that are coming out of our Jumpstart. And it really is so that we don't lose students coming out of pathways during that summer transition, and we're continuing to get them those micro-credentials along the way. We have our Inland Empire STEM Leadership Network. So through that, we offer pipeline events, including STEMapalooza, which is something that we do every year. We serve about 18,000 students in our STEMapalooza, and that, again, puts a diversity of experience in front of kids. So that's kind of like all the partnership, and all of these serve both our Riverside and San Bernardino counties. All of these opportunities are a collaborative result of the overnight success that we've been after about 20 years of relationship building. And with that, we would love to entertain questions.
All right. Members of the committee, any questions? Member Grande.
Thank you so much, Chair Rawlings, and thank you to Julie and Stephanie and Jewel and Leslie for the presentation and panel information this morning. I just want to make a comment and then a question. The first comment is a theme I'm hearing between both of the San Diego and the Inland Empire presentations is that staffing, the permanence of staffing, is problematic, particularly leveraging grant-funded positions to initiate an activity and then being able to sustain it once that grant funding may fall away. That, as a system, is a problem. We've seen it, we hear it, and we feel it. So I'm hoping that maybe as we're drafting our state plan, we might have some consideration that might rectify that. That's the comment. And then the second one is the question. And I noticed that Jewel posted in our chat a link to Program Finder, and thanks to Stephanie for the pathway map. And I've clicked on both of those as the presenters were providing information, and I noticed the incredible familiarity. They feel very similar. The information is very similar. What type of collaboration needs to occur so that there aren't two different websites that are essentially doing the same thing for the population of students that we understand are very prone to moving from one area to the other as their parents' work lives take them somewhere else? What can we do to help make that a state level website so that we see the same kind of information appear not just in Southern California, but throughout the state?
Well, I would speak to that in that a lot of times a future website is started at the grassroots level. And so you need obviously a common platform. I'm not that technically savvy. However, I'm not sure that you need to have a state managed website. Rather, if you have a website that is using a common platform that everyone can contribute to. The website that we built in the Inland Empire Desert region, it was a lot of work. It was all of our K-12 pathways coordinators, our county office of education, our center of excellence, and but we're faced with the same challenge: is how do we sustain that? Because the data does not stay static. Employers are coming in, pathways are, we're growing pathways are changing, and so it's constant. And so that support by the state. But I think if either the state could manage it, or we agree to a common platform where we can all put the same data in, and students have one place to go, but then can get the information that they need from the region that they're attached to, or from the school district or the local zip code, you know.
Since our data is pulled from CalPads, I think that there definitely would be an opportunity to do this on a statewide level. If a platform was built where you're just inputting data from certain systems, then it's pretty easy to scale up. I know that each platform has its own challenges. And so already it's interesting that you ask, because Leslie and I have already messaged like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how theirs works and goes together. So it would be great. I think this is one of those places where promising practices can be explored. And if there was a way to fund at the state level the building of a platform that we could use across the regions, I think it would be difficult to engage employers in that, because the data is not going to come out of any kind of state reporting piece, but definitely for students to access, streamline the access into those pathways. That is not a difficult undertaking, maybe technically, even if it is financially.
So on that, and great question, Member Grande, and great responses. I would ask that our staff put a pin in this idea here. And maybe there be some discussion between the agencies on, where are we at, and how can we really, have platforms that allow, counties and consortia that may not necessarily have the resources to do something like this, really to be able to take advantage of the work that's already been done and then help bring that to scale. Right. I think there's a lot of potential for some of this. So I'd like to have some follow-up discussions and research done on that by our agency and see what we can do with it.
I can tell you that organically, that is happening organically through the county office network. We do share our resources. I mean, we pump everything out there. I know Sacramento County is using our micro internship toolkit. So I mean, that's the idea. It's like, let's get it out there. Let's use it, steal it.
That's good to hear. Thank you for that. Member McQuillan, I see your hand.
Thank you. Yeah, this is just very rich conversation. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the site, the platform also. But it must take a lot of maintenance. Someone to maintain it, as it's data that's always moving. And can you talk about the maintenance and who and how that's being done? And then the second question is, I know there are challenges to obtain data when students are at the end of their journey and they actually get hired. Does this platform capture that data also when a student is successfully obtaining an entry-level position? Thank you.
So I would answer that with the platform we're using and the funding that our community partner received from JPMorgan Chase. We want to explore integrating the platform with another platform that we use for student job placement in CTE. There's many services out there. We use one proprietary system called Job Speaker, but there are other systems out there. And if there is a way to integrate those two systems so that students can go from exploring a career at one end to actually getting hired at the other end, and for us to be able to track that. But we're just in the exploratory stages at this point. It's not always easy to get systems to talk to each other.
Okay, any other questions from folks or comments?
I would like to make one comment about the last question, in that it is something that we have asked our regional consortia across the state to look at identifying a way to track employment outcomes for our students. We recently released an RFA to renew all of our consortium, and that's one of the primary tasks we gave them, to make sure that they are identifying a platform that meets the needs of their region so that we are able to better track student outcomes in terms of employment. So I'm sure, as Julie mentioned, they're in their exploratory phase. Over the next few years, I'm sure we'll see some amazing things coming out of our regional leadership for these efforts. So just stay tuned on that.
All right, I appreciate that.
If I could add just one more comment, under the umbrella or in the bucket of systems talking to each other and working together, right? We have the Community Economic Resiliency Fund, and it's specific to, the jobs, the economic recovery after the pandemic. So to the extent that we can align with, there's potentially resource there that aligns with this work. So how can we, put it all together in a way that makes sense to the front end user? Because our students, and this was addressed early on, our students need a seamless system. They need to be able to have a warm handoff that doesn't even feel like a warm handoff all the way through. So they don't know what they don't know. And unless we build that, they don't even know, which system they may be in. They just know people that can help them to get through a door. And so to the extent that we can do a better job of integrating our larger sectors, I think we'll be doing great work.
Thank you for that. If there are no other comments, Daniel, back to you.
Thank you, Chair Rollins. So maybe one more slide. Thank you. So we wanted to now engage the committee in a discussion on the California State Plan for CTE outline. We've been working closely with the state team to craft this outline over the last few months, using what we've learned through background research, study sessions, focus groups, and discussions during meetings with this committee. As we look toward presenting a full draft to this committee at the next meeting, we wanted to collect your feedback today on the structure of this plan. Next slide, please. The outline you see here contains 6 main components, and I'll go through each of them one by one. So in the introduction, this would be the section where we set the context, talking about some of the trends we've heard through study sessions, for example, like digitization, automation, remote learning, and how these are having an impact on the future of CTE. We would also frame here how the pandemic has accelerated many of these changes and how these changes are affecting how Californians learn and work. We would also raise up here the imperatives for this work, ensuring California is preparing the workforce of tomorrow, the equity imperative behind this work, how CTE can improve student success outcomes, including success in the labor market, and of course, the need to close equity gaps and boost economic and social mobility. In this section, we also plan to name some of the related work that is already happening, as well as materials that have informed this plan, including this committee's guiding policy principles, and some of the other work happening through other agencies. We also name here the inputs that you've heard from today, the regional panel, the study sessions, and focus groups that have informed this work. In the second section, a bold vision, we plan to elevate equity as being at the heart of the vision for excellence in CTE in California. That career education in California must develop a diverse, relevant, and qualified workforce to maintain the state's economic vitality and to meet labor market demand. And that to do this, California seeks to create an overall statewide CTE system that is coherent, flexible, and adaptable, some of the things we heard from the panelists today, and aligned to current and future labor market demands. And that this system will serve the diversity of California's regions and the diversity of its people. It also calls out some of the barriers, real or perceived, to be removed, both for individual students and workers, and also across systems. And thinking about also one of the things we heard today around a mindset of college and career. The key priorities, the plan lays out the 4 priorities we saw earlier today, as well as the 5 cross-cutting themes. And sort of states that this has been driving the development of the state plan. The next section is sort of the main section of the document. We could say it would be the longest. This is where the strategies for getting toward that vision would be laid out. The strategies cut across priorities, so we plan to organize them in the categories you see here. There are 4 domains: equity, learner support and student success, infrastructure for scale, and learning for the future. So in that first sort of bucket or domain, because equity is at the foundation of the plan, we gave it its own domain. So strategies in this section relate to developing that common definition and understanding of equity across the state, using data to identify equity gaps, and developing strategies to close those gaps. The second domain around learner support and success, this is where we're thinking about strategies related to supporting learners and boosting learner success, thinking about recruitment and retention of students in CTE, transforming college and career exploration, advising and navigation systems, and ensuring all learners receive the individualized supports that they need to succeed. In the third domain, we would capture strategies for developing the infrastructure needed to scale elements of high-quality pathways. So thinking about alignment of priorities and goals across systems, either at the state level or in regions, building the capacity of regions to take regional approaches and to engage in systems thinking, and developing some of the funding strategies that came up also during the panel discussion that support effective delivery and support, as well as sustainability. In the final section, we plan to talk about strategies related to fostering learning among education professionals and using data for continuous improvement as the California CTE system looks toward the future. So here are strategies related to professional development, ensuring educational and workforce data are accessible and useful to education and workforce actors, boosting data-driven decision-making, and thinking about how accountability systems can support continuous improvement. In the next section of the outline, we plan to include a few examples from across the state. These would help demonstrate how the priorities in the state plan have already begun to be implemented across California's diverse regional contexts. And finally, in the call to action, we would call for system leaders, policymakers, and practitioners from across sectors, as well as learners, workers, and their families and communities to work together to boldly imagine, reimagine, and restructure career education in the state. Next slide, please. So we'd love to invite the committee to ask us questions and engage in a discussion around what you've heard today.
All right, committee members, any questions or thoughts? Member Grande.
Thank you very much, Chair Rawlings, and thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to weigh in on what is conceivably the draft that we'll have at our next meeting. I can't imagine. I've been waiting with anticipation to read a draft of our state plan, and I think that we now have some very firm anchors to look forward to, and I thank you very much. The one thing that I would like us to consider, though, is the fact that this is not a new state plan. We have had state plans in the past, and one of the things that I found was lacking in all of our presentations and discussions up to this point is the evaluation of where we've been so that we know where we can go and things that we can do to improve. And that was the one thing that I would love to see included in this draft is some sort of a metric for which we will determine, have we made it to where we plan to go? So looking at the current areas and that call to action, I would hope that we wouldn't end with a call to action, but rather we would operationalize what we find to be the outcomes of that call for action and to know when we have indeed met our destination. So this is not so much a question as it is just a commentary. I really think that we need to begin the introduction with where we've been on our previous plan and what we have managed to accomplish, because there have been several that are very noteworthy. And then as we begin to build the foundation for the plan going forward, that we include outcome measures that we are seeking to meet.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions or thoughts on either the outline or the presentations? Member McQuillan.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Daniel, for all the good information in developing this plan. And I realize it's a work in progress. I'm just wondering how the participation rates are going for our diverse and underserved communities in terms of the focus groups and other meetings where information and input is being gathered. Do you have any more information on that? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so we had about close to 80 participants who attended in the end to these meetings. We did cover each of those interest holder groups that I mentioned up top. So we do feel that we got sort of the perspectives from each of those groups. As I mentioned, moving forward, we still have to survey our students, high school students and parents.
Got it. Member Williams.
Yeah, thank you. And Daniel, thank you for presenting the information. On one of the slides, you were talking about the strategies. Can you talk about the success one again? Were you alluding to success as a strategy, or I didn't quite capture that slide where it had that mentioned?
Yeah, I think maybe it was one of the talking points in the introduction where we would love to talk about how CTE is a key component toward improving student success outcomes, including success in the labor market. So thinking about the critical role that CTE plays in sort of lifelong learning, not just for sort of high school students, but also for those accessing the community college system and sort of all workers and learners across the lifespan.
Okay, because the slide had it under strategies, and so I was just wondering what you meant by success being a strategy.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, so we were talking about how to ensure student learner success. So thinking about sort of the individualized supports that students might need in order to access CTE programming, ensuring that they have opportunities to demonstrate and develop in-demand, durable, transferable skills. So really strategies for driving student success. And maybe we can clarify that in the naming of the domains.
Good questions. Any other comments or questions on this from members? Member Rodriguez.
I just want to say that I'm looking forward to the plan. I appreciate the presentation and the previous comments, and on the item, the historical outline, because that's really nice to just catch up on what has happened thus far. So I'm looking forward to the development of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Member Rodriguez. And I can say it has been a little bit of a long road, but it is going to absolutely be worth it. We're really excited for it. All right. Seeing no other comments or questions from members, then we will open this up for public comment. So any members of the public that would like to comment live, go ahead and raise your hands, and then we have instructions on alternative methods of providing feedback.
There's no public comment on this item.
No public comment. All right. Then that is public comment for items 3 and 2. And so if there are no public comments on those two items, then I would suggest we would take a 10-minute break. Would that be appropriate, members? You're okay with that? Then we'll give us a little long. I have 10:48 as the time right now, so we will return and resume at 11 o'clock. All right, welcome back, everyone. We will need a quorum to resume, and so I will ask our staff to please call the roll.
And so then they're still missing their.
Chair Rawlings?
Yes.
Member Escobedo? Member Grande?
Here.
Member McQuillan? Member Rodriguez?
Present.
Member Williams?
Here.
Ex officio Member McGuire? Ex officio Member Rattray?
And I would note the presence of Member McQuillan. All right, so we have a quorum. And so that brings us to, I believe, item number 4. So I'd like to welcome Pete Callis, the director of the Career and College Transition Division, along with Yana Yatridis, Dean of the Workforce Division, California Community College's Chancellor's Office, to update us on the CTE Incentive Grant and K-12 Strong Workforce programs.
Great. Thank you, Chair Rawlings. So Pete Callis from the California Department of Education, Division Director of the Career and College Transition Division. Just an update on what's been going on with the CTEIG round 7, and it's actually round 7A was the first round that we did earlier this 21-22 year. We had 370 applications in round 7A. 342 of the 370 were actually funded, and the funding was approved at the March State Board of Education meeting. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that. We were just checking audio in the room. So we had 342 approved applications. As I said, the State Board of Education approved them at the March board meeting. We were able to allocate $241 million of the $300 million that we received this year. So we decided to do a second round 7B, for the CTE Incentive Grant Program. In round 7B, we received 40 applications. 36 of those 40 were approved in the scoring round. And of the 4 that were not approved, 3 of them are already working with their regional coordinators so they can apply in round 8 for the 22-23 fiscal year to improve their application. So they're working with their regional coordinators. We had $59 million available for their allocations. We're still working on the formula to calculate their allocations. We'll have that at the next meeting, and those will be approved at the May board meeting for the State Board of Education. They'll be posted 30 days prior to that meeting for public view. So that's where we are with that. We've got some legislation right now over in the Capitol regarding CTEIG, and we're waiting to see what comes out of the legislation that is being considered right now for this next round. Another quick update, I know Member Williams is really interested about work-based learning projects that we're working on, and we'll have a full presentation on what we're doing with work-based learning at the K-12 level at the May CWPJAC meeting. Just to highlight, right now there's an Assembly bill out, Assembly Bill 2088, authored by Assembly Member Cooper. It was just brought to the Assembly Ed Committee this past week, and I was able to testify in that. And it's basically on your interest, Mr. Williams, with paid internship programs for high school students. There's about $550 million in that bill, if it passes, to do a 3-year pilot program for high school juniors going into their senior year. So that summer in between, they would have an 8-week full-time paid internship program where they can earn some funds and get some experience in CTEIG pathways. We also have a paid internship program through Marriott Resorts that started in the Coachella Valley that we'll be presenting on in May, and we're actually expanding that out to other parts of Southern California with Marriott Resorts. So a lot of things going on, along with, I know that our friends from San Bernardino discussed and San Diego discussed apprenticeship programs along with youth apprenticeship programs. So we're working on building those out right now. We've had some pre-apprenticeship programs through our California Partnership Academy process. There's 9 of them in the construction trades that we have going now, and they've been around for about 7 years, but we'd like to expand out to other industry sectors. So just some highlights of what we're looking forward to and presenting at the May board meeting, the CWPJAC meeting in May, as informational items. And I'd like to pass it over to my partner over at the Chancellor's office, Yana Urtridis.
Thank you, Director Callis. Good morning, Chair Rawlings and members of the board. I'm Yana Urtridis, the Dean of Workforce and Economic Development at the California Community College Chancellor's Office. And I will just give a very brief update on our K-12 Strong Workforce Program. Last fall, the California Community College's Chancellor's Office successfully released round 4 requests for application for K-12 SWP. The selection committee preliminary awards were announced in November, with appeals considered in December, and the intent to award sent out December 20th. The California Community College's Chancellor's Office received 236 applications in response to the K-12 SWP RFA, with a total request of $176,601,208 in funding. The Chancellor's Office awarded 211 K-12 SWP applications for a total amount of $143,766,644 in funding. And the project, of course, began in January. We will have more details regarding some of the data and lessons learned and so forth at the May CWPJAC. Just also another quick update. I know there's always a interest in the professional development that we provide our key talent, our technical assistance providers, and our pathway coordinators. And earlier this month, statewide TAP, Lila Eddington, conducted a 2-day professional development for the key talent to foster partnerships and provide leadership in the K-14 career technical education in California. This professional development was delivered in partnership with the K-12 Strong Workforce team of the Chancellor's Office, Specialist Katie Gilks and Associate Government Program Analyst Dalbir Sin, as well as, of course, CDE's Education Program Consultant Tara Nielsen, and input from the key talent itself. Thank you so much.
All right. So if that concludes this item, I'll ask, are there any member comments or questions? Member McQuillan.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the updates. Director Callis mentioned this bill on paid internships for high school students. Can you give that bill number again in case anybody wants to lend support to that? It's a fantastic potential there. Thank you.
Absolutely. It is Assembly Bill 2088.
Thank you for that. Member Williams.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for the update and including this as a part of the conversation today. I think paid internships is a great way to incentivize students to just build work skills, and as close as we can placing them in opportunities that are aligned to pathways. I think it would be a really interesting study to just really compare and look at students who are in a pathway that get paid work experience versus students who are in a pathway who don't. You know, you can go a lot of different ways with it, but it would just really be interesting to see how the pay increases the outcomes for students. So I appreciate the update. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things was the original language was just a 1-year pilot, and I requested that it be a multi-year pilot so that we get more data out of this, so we can have a better understanding of what you just mentioned, Member Williams. So right now it's written as a 3-year pilot program.
That's great. Member Rodriguez.
Yes, I also want to echo the comments that have been made. What a wonderful opportunity this would be for our students, and also the 3-year period. Right, that's enough. It's enough time to know if the pilot is giving us the outcomes that we've been talking about, making sure that there's not only access, but also that the outcomes are showing that we're reaching all the students.
That's great. I agree. If there are no other comments from members, we will now take public comment on this item. I see no hands from members of the audience in live. Are there any comments via email or phone?
At this time, there's no public comment on this item.
All right. So seeing no public comments for this item, this will close the public comment for item 4. That gets us to item number 5, which is the general public comment. I first want to thank the members of the public for attending and our committee members, and especially our new member Rodriguez. Look forward to working with you in the future. And so I will ask now if there are any comments from the public on items that were not on this agenda and that are under our purview. And I see no hands. Were any public comments sent via email or via phone?
At this time, there's no public comment.
All right. Then members of the committee, do you have any additional comments you'd like to share? All right. Seeing no final comments from members of our committee, I just want to thank everyone, let everyone know that our next meeting is scheduled for May 20th, starting at 9 a.m. I'm not sure, maybe staff can mention if it might be virtual still, or if there's a chance it would be in person. That would be helpful, but May 20th is our next meeting.
Well, we're looking into whether it's going to be virtual or in person. We'll know soon.
Got it. Yeah, looking forward to seeing everyone live again.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know that I had to testify this week at the assembly, and the assembly required us to be there in person, but still some of the agencies testified via virtual. So we're still looking into the requirements.
Got it. That is helpful. I do know that the discussion among the Board of Governors has been that we would have 2 in-person locations, one in Northern California, one in Southern California, just to reduce the number of people in the shared space. So I think that is an interesting idea for them, but may not work as well for us. So absent any other comments from members or the public, our business is concluded today. So we will adjourn at 11:14. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.